So we all know that at the end of Star Wars Return of the Jedi, Darth Vader decides to kill the Emperor and save Luke Skywalker from certain death. The conflict throughout the film is that Yoda and Obi-Wan, after confirming that Darth Vader is Luke's father, still want him to kill the Sith Lord because he's a menace. Luke believes that his father can be saved and redeemed and tries to convince him of that in the third act, while the Emperor tries to get Luke to kill Darth Vader and take his father's place as the Emperor's apprentice. That's all well and good. Love this movie. I love Star Wars in general, but there was just one little detail about this plot that I find strange when I did a video on the original trilogy a few years ago, and now when I rewatched the movies over the last few weeks in preparation for the 20th anniversary theatrical re-release of Revenge of the Sith. The thing I find odd about the end of Return of the Jedi is what Darth Vader's final decision is supposed to mean and represent for the character. Luke's point is that there's still good in Vader, and when he's dying, Vader is like,
"You were right about me."
Then he gets a Jedi cremation, and is even able to go to Force Ghost Heaven alongside Yoda and Obi-Wan. The point being that he's good now? I just think that's kind of a funny ending given all this man has done. From day one, Darth Vader's place in the Star Wars trilogy was that of the ultimate bad guy. He kills a dude within 5 minutes of appearing, and throughout A New Hope, he takes a prominent political figure, Princess Leia, hostage and tries to torture information out of her. He's also complicit in the destruction of Alderaan, killing millions of people in a single second. Again, this is all in Darth Vader's debut appearance. In The Empire Strikes Back, he's far more off the leash, killing even his own people indiscriminately. On Cloud City, he has Han Solo tortured for no other reason than getting Luke to sense it through the Force and lead him into a trap. Han even says they didn't ask him any questions. And in his fight with Luke, he cuts the boy's hand off before telling him that he's his father. What I'm saying is that even in these movies, his purpose is just being the physical manifestation of bad news. You don't want to see him walking down the hall or hear his breath because death and destruction were sure to follow. Only in Return of the Jedi did they introduce the idea that there was ever anything good about him. This is the movie where his name, Anakin, was revealed for the first time, and Obi-Wan justifies his blatant lies to Luke from the first movie by saying,
"You told me Vader betrayed and murdered my father."
So what I told you was true, from a certain point of view.
Something every Star Wars fan should accept is that this franchise is full of retcons, and things that barely make a lick of sense. I mean, this is also the scene where they write the love triangle between Luke, Han, and Leia out of the story by introducing the fact that Luke and Leia are actually twins. It's funny that that's just accepted Star Wars lore and is like a bedrock of the story and has been that for over 40 years, but in 1983, that was a bit of an ass pull. Retcons aren't inherently bad, some of them are even good, but my point is that Star Wars does make shit up a lot of the time. And Anakin Skywalker being anything close to redeemable by this point in his life is one of them. But it still made sense. From a simplistic point of view, Anakin was a good person once, was led astray, and has kept on that path ever since, because that's what the dark side does to people, as Yoda explained to Luke in episodes 5 and 6. But Luke, being the only person to believe in Darth Vader, brings him back to his senses before he dies. His good deed allows him to become a Force ghost and stuff. That's a satisfying character arc for Vader in the original trilogy. It's fine for Star Wars because it's a good and evil fairy tale type of story, but when you think about it for longer than 5 seconds, you do wonder, wait a minute, that's all it takes to be absolved of heinous crimes against nature in this universe? Doing a single good thing? Legit the only good thing you've done in over 20 years. And that's what I wanted to talk about. Once more, I'm not saying this is to say it's a flaw with the writing of Star Wars. It's not meant to be that deep. I just thought it was a funny observation that hangs over the entire series, and I wanted to make a nerdy video about it since it's almost Star Wars Day. If you ever wondered to yourself if Darth Vader deserved that redemption or not while watching the original trilogy, you'd then imagine that the prequel trilogy's goal will be showing us how good Anakin was, making his turn to the dark side more sympathetic and for you to root for his being good again, but this discussion actually gets me more interested when you factor in the prequels. This being my first time rewatching these movies in a while. I've seen the original trilogy many times before, but prior to today I had only seen The Phantom Menace and Attack of the Clones once. Now that number is up to twice. Sith I've seen a few times, I always liked that one, but as I was saying, the way Anakin is written in these movies, specifically Attack of the Clones, actually doubles down on the idea that he does not deserve to be forgiven for anything. Because the prequel trilogy show that the Jedi almost single-handedly guaranteed Anakin was destined to become evil from the very beginning. In The Phantom Menace, you meet Anakin as a 9-year-old boy who's enslaved on Tatooine, dreaming of a better life for him and his mother. But Qui-Gon Jinn is only able to secure Anakin's freedom, thinking him more important because of how strong the Force is with him, so Anakin has to leave his mother behind to become a Jedi. But he's shown nothing but contempt from the Jedi Council because he is too old to be trained, since apparently attachment and the fear of loss leads to the dark side, and Anakin is old enough to be attached to his mother.
I miss her.
Afraid to lose her, I think,
What has that got to do with anything? Fear is the path to the dark side.
The boy could have come back from this. Qui-Gon was an encouraging role model for him, but that doesn't last because Qui-Gon dies and Anakin is stuck with Obi-Wan Kenobi as a master. A man who has also shown him nothing but disinterest and contempt throughout the whole movie.
It won't be long.
Why do I sense we've picked up another pathetic life form?
Anakin Skywalker, meet Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Hi.
Obi-Wan only trains Anakin because Qui-Gon asked him as a dying wish. He wanted nothing to do with this kid before that.
The boy is dangerous. They all sense it. Why can't you?
So in this movie, you see Anakin taken from his home and mother, freeing him from slavery, but instead he's put in this world of people who think he's dangerous and treat him, a 9-year-old boy, as such. And tell him that thinking about his mother is forbidden. I mean, how do you expect that person to turn out? I must say, upon this second viewing of The Phantom Menace, I didn't hate it like I told myself I did when I watched it for the first and last time, like 11 years ago or whatever it was. This time, I watched with a little more of an open mind. I concluded that I thought the effects really didn't hold up that well, and that it was a really quite insane creative choice to make the long-awaited sequel to Star Wars just be Jar Jar Binks trading gags with child Anakin, whose acting, to be nice about it, left a lot to be desired. The movie has a very glacial pace as well. I wouldn't want to watch it again anytime soon, but I just think it's a really fascinating piece of history given how much it did do to innovate filmmaking and how much more advanced things were compared to the OT, and just to witness a film that was like the OG disappointment. I mean, people getting upset over a disappointing movie is pretty commonplace now. It happens multiple times a year. Hate campaigns are born from movies that aren't even out yet. While underwhelming movie sequels certainly existed long before The Phantom Menace, the level of hype this one had versus the legacy it got was quite something. I included that little mini review just now in case anyone wanted to know how I felt about these movies in general, because I don't plan on doing a big retrospective on the prequels like I did the originals, unless people really want to see that. I'm making this video because I feel like talking about Star Wars in a video that's relatively simple to make. But anyway, Attack of the Clones. This one is also interesting because it did cut down on the Jar Jar of it all. Anakin is also 19 in this instead of 9, and it was a landmark moment in filmmaking history because it was all shot on digital and mostly on blue screen. I once did a film class for undergrad, and it was such a weird moment to be reading about film tech, and a whole part of a chapter was just dedicated to how much changed as a result of Attack of the Clones. It gets you to realize that this is made back when franchise movies were also significant developments in how movies were made, when these days, big franchise stuff and serious movies worthy of analysis are two very different camps. But regardless, while some of it still looks good, a lot of the movie looks like a video game. Things just look very fake, and that's one of the reasons why I think this is my second least favorite Star Wars movie, behind The Rise of Skywalker. I haven't rewatched any of the Disney trilogy since they all came out, but I remember liking 1 and 2 upon release, but Part 3 just sucked ass, man, but I'm getting off subject again. Another thing that Attack of the Clones has that makes it one of my least favorites is its depiction of Anakin. If the intention was that he was a good man led astray, this movie does not show that at all. Instead, he's actually terrifyingly unwell. At first you think, oh, he's awkward, thinking about the girl he liked in episode 1 that he hasn't seen in 10 years, but they make it really bad. Like, within a few minutes, this happens.
Please don't look at me like that.
Why not?
It makes me feel uncomfortable.
Sorry, milady.
I mean, Jesus Christ, could you have made him any more menacing than this scene does? But that begins one of the most unwatchably cringeworthy romantic plots I have ever seen in a blockbuster. A lot of the blame gets put on Hayden Christensen and Natalie Portman, but you really can't make this dialogue work. It's just super verbose and dramatic and sounds really unnatural, and it shows a level of obsessiveness from Anakin that is skin-crawling.
And now that I'm with you again, I'm in agony. The closer I get to you, the worse it gets. I'm haunted by the kiss that you should never have given me. You are in my very soul, tormenting me.
But I am, once more, not really trying to review the prequels here, I'm just looking at the writing of Anakin as a person. The romance between Anakin and Padme is, perhaps, the most important thing this movie needed to nail, since it's the thing the entire saga revolves around. But part of what makes it so unbelievable is just how weird and menacing Anakin is. He'd give any normal person, as the kids say, the ick. Like when Anakin and Padme are discussing the finer points of the political conflict that's brewing, the one that eventually leads to the Clone Wars, Anakin just straight up says that a total dictatorship is probably better than democracy if a totally wise and good person was made to rule. That way, conflicts are forcibly resolved. Like, that's not even a joke, that's like totally a thing that happens in the movie.
Trouble is that people don't always agree.
Well, then they should be made to.
I can excuse the writing making Anakin bratty with Obi-Wan, he's 19 and Obi-Wan is the dad in the room, that makes sense. Him being super awkward with Padme since he's done nothing but train as a Jedi for 10 years and was a slave before then, that makes sense. But why is he written as a fascist sympathizer? And then when he finds out his mother is brutally murdered, he goes on a killing spree over it. He even knows what he did wrong in the following scene.
They're dead. And not just the men, but the women and the children too. I hate them!
But then Padme tells him it's fine because anger is a normal emotion. These two just seem really dysfunctional by watching the movie, since I have no idea how it gets from this
It makes me feel uncomfortable.
to this.
To be angry is to be human.
I'm telling you, it's so odd to watch because the romance is so toxic to the point where I can't tell you if it's in the text that these two are a ticking time bomb or if that's just how I'm interpreting it. And by watching the making of, it just sounds like it's meant to be a normal romance, but one that's made a little more dramatic because of it being forbidden and all that. But the writing makes Anakin incredibly unappealing to the point where I don't know if it was intentional. By comparison, the prequel's political commentary was actually pretty well done. That also suffers from verbose dialogue, but I thought, contrary to what the internet said about these scenes for so long, that it was easy to follow and super interesting. You know, how Palpatine carefully maneuvers himself into greater positions of power throughout the trilogy and uses the war that he manufactured from behind the scenes as an excuse to hold as much power as possible, and then gradually turn the galaxy into a dictatorship piece by piece until Episode 3, where he just announces it's an empire now, since all the groundwork was laid for it already. I think that's all really well done in these movies, but plenty of great videos have been made on that subject already. I'm just here to talk about Anakin. Which leads me to the subject of Revenge of the Sith. This is absolutely a movie I enjoy. As I've mentioned in the past, Star Wars for me is just the OT, and I can take or leave bits and pieces of the rest. Revenge of the Sith is on the take list. It's a fun action movie which went to the darkest places of any Star Wars movie and probably has the best soundtrack in the series. But what gives me doubt that Anakin was meant to be portrayed as bad from the beginning is how the first half of Revenge of the Sith writes him. While watching this movie for the 20th anniversary re-release, I was thinking, you really gotta feel bad for Anakin in this one. He's shown caring about clones dying in combat even years into the war. But despite that and his killing Count Dooku, every Jedi Master treats him with nothing but suspicion and contempt yet again. In this one, his inevitably going bad is more obvious than ever. When he thinks Padme is gonna die in childbirth, he tries to get Yoda's help, but he just says the solution is to just not care anymore. Seriously, the arc of these movies is that Anakin's life was set up for disaster from moment one, and that the Jedi did everything in their power to make it happen. Like publicly humiliating him.
You are on this council, but we do not grant you the rank of master.
Making him do things he'd obviously not want to do.
They want me to spy on the Chancellor.
Talking mad shit about him behind his back.
I don't trust him.
And telling him he hasn't been trustworthy to his face when he really hasn't done anything to any of them.
If what you've told me is true, you will have gained my trust.
Qui-Gon and his mother were the only people to treat him with respect, and they're dead, so all he has is Palpatine and Padme. The Chancellor is the only person who consistently treats Anakin humanely besides Padme at this point, so yeah, I guess it makes sense he'd rather side with him. But then in the second half of the movie, his desperation to save Padme turns him into an utter psychopath. Like, his first official act as Darth Vader is slaughtering Jedi children with no questions asked. But once again, I find it really confusing, since the movie treats this as a super shocking development. Like, Padme can't believe it until she meets his crazy ass on Mustafar. But did he not already slaughter people before? And again, why is his wanting to rule the galaxy shocking? He already said that was better than democracy in the previous movie. Which again is why I'm saying Attack of the Clones really confuses me. Like, what were they trying to say about this guy in that movie? Anyway, the Psycho then force chokes her when he's decided she's also against him. And we all know how well that goes for Anakin after that. Which brings us back to the original trilogy. Something George Lucas focused on a lot during the prequels was that the idea of it being like poetry, that certain themes and ideas of Luke's journey will be mirrored in Anakin's. The arc of the 6 films is that Anakin falls to the dark side in a desperate attempt to save Padme because he loves her and can't allow her to die, which all blows up in his face spectacularly and causes her death and his being confined to a clunky robot suit. But then, 20 some odd years later, he abandons the dark side in an attempt to save Luke's life because he loves him and can't allow him to die. Only this time, he achieves something good. The ultimate moral being that his attachments were never the problem. The Jedi Order was totally wrong about that. Attachment being stigmatized caused much of Anakin's anxiety, but it was also the thing that brought about the end of the Galactic Empire. That's all fine and good, however, returning to the point of the video, does Darth Vader actually deserve redemption? The original trilogy shows him as a bad person. The prequels then go to show how, a lot of the time, he was already like that long before turning to the dark side. And whenever Darth Vader appears in new stuff, they make it a point of showing him do extra cruel stuff. The scenes are always great to watch because he's a super menacing bad guy and you like seeing that. But still, not a single good quality in sight for this dude. Some may say that these were the actions of Darth Vader and not Anakin, like Vader says right here.
Anakin's gone. I'm what remains.
That also being the logic that Obi-Wan used to lie to Luke. But that doesn't hold up to scrutiny given the way he was behaving before going in the suit. Another thing that takes away from his being worthy of Force Ghost Heaven is... Can you even say that Darth Vader learns anything by the end of the story? I mean, he turned evil for self-motivated reasons and did a good thing at the end for the same reason. The saga, if anything, shows he never really had a lot of great moral fiber to begin with and just did whatever made sense to him in that moment. His dying immediately after killing the Emperor doesn't help either. It's pretty damn easy to be like, great work, Luke, I'm saved, if you're on your deathbed. I'd imagine it would be virtually impossible to ever make up for what he did wrong, but it is possible to write an arc like that. Take the God of War games, for example. If you haven't played it, the story goes that the main character, Kratos, was once a person who tried to do things that made sense to him, but was eventually driven so mad by the powers around him that he became an unstoppable monster. But then the recent games show what happens to a character like that later in life, where he has to acknowledge his past and choose to be better and accept his past self for all the good and bad he's done. But we don't really get that for Lord Vader. So, by the end, you do wonder what lessons have been learned, if any. And what qualifies as redemption in the Star Wars universe if Darth Vader, of all people, can be considered redeemed? But while I'm rambling about this topic, I also thought it was funny how, if you rewatch the saga, Obi-Wan and Yoda are so guilty throughout these movies. Like, they're the good guys at the end of the day, but Obi-Wan and Yoda did so much to manipulate Luke into killing Darth Vader, including telling hilarious lies and justifying it with, from a certain point of view. Some have said Obi-Wan's nostalgia for Anakin in these movies was contradicted by the prequels showing how much they argued and how much shit Obi-Wan gave him from day one. But I honestly think it would be interesting if that actually wasn't a retcon. Like, imagine if Obi-Wan is just the kind of parent who gives their kid a bunch of shit for their whole life and then was like, oh yeah, everything was great, I don't know what his problem was. Only for their relationship to have actually just been this the whole time.
The boy is dangerous. They all sense it, why can't you?
Well, you've lost him. That was some shortcut, Anakin. He went completely the other way.
His abilities have made him, well, arrogant.
He's overly critical. He never listens. He doesn't understand. It's all Obi-Wan's fault. He's jealous. He's holding me back.
Then we decided to come and rescue you.
Good job.
You will be expelled from the Jedi Order!
I can't leave her!
Come to your senses!
But yeah, Obi-Wan and Yoda lie to Luke and tell him to let his friends die.
And sacrifice Han and Leia.
If you honor what they fight for, yes.
And then once the truth is out, they're still like, sorry kid, you really need to kill that dude, he's completely irredeemable.
I can't kill my own father.
Then the Emperor has already won.
But then Vader kills the Emperor, dies, and they're like, yo, Anakin, good to see you, buddy, always believed in you. But with all that said, as stated towards the beginning of the video, I'm not making the case that Star Wars is bad or stupid or some other hot take. I'm basically just thinking out loud with this one. Mark Hamill, when quoting Harrison Ford, put it pretty well.
And he turns to me and says, hey, kid, it ain't that kind of movie. If people are looking at your hair, we're all in big trouble.
It's just not that deep. I just thought it would be fun. So that being said, I hope you thought the video was fun for what it was worth. I was just in the mood to talk Star Wars again, so if you liked it and want to see me keep talking about the galaxy from far, far away, let me know. That's about all the time we have for today, so I'll close by saying what I always do. If you made it this far into the video, I thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.